Today, in current events from a Christian perspective, ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement tasked with finding and dealing with those that enter America illegally, is under fire, especially for this incident in Minnesota involving shooting a driver who was blocking the roadway. We will look at this and some other stories today. I'm Matt Odegaard, and this is Church Public. Hey everybody, welcome back to Church Public. I'm your host, Matt Odegaard, as always, and I appreciate you stopping by. I got a lot of news to get to today, so we will jump right in. If you want to hit all the buttons and like and subscribe and review and all the things, you know how to do that. If you haven't already navigated to the Substack, you can drop your email in there and not miss an episode. That's probably the best way to get both the audio and the video, because if you're just on audio, that's wonderful. And if you'd like the video, we've got that too. Okay, let's jump right into this ICE problem, the ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement. By now, you've likely seen tons of camera angles of the ICE shooting in Minnesota. I'm not going to play it here, but if you haven't seen them, you likely should go look at them. It's terrible, but you sort of need to see it in order to understand what is going on so that you can draw your conclusion for yourself. I'm just going to summarize, and you can agree or disagree with me, but based on what I've seen, which at this point is so many camera angles. I haven't even counted them. There's so many. I have seen so many camera angles. I would say it's indisputable that the agent was in front of the car and she saw him, and she was told by agents to stop and get out of the car, and she accelerated into the agent, causing him to make a split-second decision to respond to the deadly force of the vehicle driver with his firearm. If you've heard other stories, they're likely telling you that stories. Go and watch the tapes. You will see exactly what happened, because this is a well-documented incident. And it's tragic, and we need to talk about that. When any loss of life is occurred, it's tragic. And at the same time, this poor ICE agent did not, I'm sure, want to do this on that particular day either. So there's tragedy in the whole real thing. And I think there's theological concerns that we need to address throughout this process. There are heresies. There are heresies flowing like water through the culture and even through the churches. Emotion runs this day, and you see that exemplified in this particular example. This is not a rational argument. Those that you hear that are talking about this, many, especially on the left, are not rational in regards to what they're talking about with this problem, with this event. They just want to tell you a story and not show you the video. Like I said, I'm not showing you the video, but that is not in order to hide something from you. I think there's so many videos on there now that if you haven't seen it, you should just go watch it. I think you should do that. And there are so many videos that you can see literally every angle. You can even hear the quote-unquote wife of the driver, who was also a girl, encouraging her to drive away. Drive, I believe is the quote that she says. You can check that out. So what happens is emotion runs the day rather than the facts and logic and actual information of what happened. And this is not a rational argument. That should be obvious. We should be able to understand and see that this is not a rational argument, but this is how empathy weaponized into non-biblical actions works. This is how heresy works. If you think about heresy and you think about the heresies of any particular day, especially in the church, you take a tragic moment or event and you use it to rile up the people into really bad actions. That's how all of this works. You've likely seen this video of the confrontation, and if you haven't, again, go watch it. But we have to understand that we're at such a point of emotional tension that we're exhausted by these continuous incidents. And that's the reality of it, both for us and I believe for those involved. And that's the point. These moments are made to wear down your understanding, to raise up narratives that, upon a closer look, seems to dissolve into nothing. But we don't take that moment, and that's the thing. If this were rational, and if it were in a time where tensions were not so high we couldn't see through them, you would take a moment and think, is this really what's going on? Do I really need to react in such a way? But tensions are so high, emotions are so elevated, it jumps immediately into reaction. And that's not good. Christ brings order because one of the fruit of the Spirit is self-control. And in order to have self-control, you need to have time. You need to think about what does it mean to have self-control. But without Christ, there's only chaos. I talk about this all the time, and it's really important, and we see that in this incident. If there is only chaos, you're bounced from one thing to the next, and you have no mooring in reality. And unfortunately, the activist class knows this. Why do you think immediately after this incident, and I mean immediately after this incident, hours after it, if not immediately after, they were rioting in the streets. They were invading hotels where they thought ICE agents stayed. They were marching. How did they get organized so fast? It's because the activist class is intentionally stirring these things up. They're pushing the chaos to wear you down. They're weaponizing empathy to make you feel guilty for not joining the movement. They shame you into joining the group. After all, if everyone else is outraged, why aren't you? If you're aligned with the latest outrage, you're morally good, and of course, vice versa. If you're not aligned with this, you're a bad person, full stop. When Charlie Kirk was killed, there were prayer vigils held around the country. When this unknown woman was killed, they began to riot. Charlie was speaking truth to the left on a school campus. This woman was intentionally going against the appointed authority by using her vehicle to block and impede the path of the authorized law enforcement agents. Those are different things. We should be able to look at that and go, those are different things. But in this age and day, you have to do your own thinking. You have to think this. You can't just jump immediately on the bandwagon of infuriated outrage. And the thought of doing your own research, the thought of figuring out what is true and what is not is exhausting for some. But you can't sleep on these kinds of things. You can't trust those that seek to rile you up into emotional action, because many, if not most of them, have ill intentions. They just do. And if nothing else, they want to breed chaos because that provides opportunity to sell fear. And fear, unfortunately, is very profitable. It just is. Christianity, on the other hand, has always been a religion of education. I have my Bible right here, and I read it every day because that's what we're supposed to do, is learn and grow deeper intellectually. It's a following of the heart and soul and mind and strength. Jesus says, love your God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength. Heart and soul and mind and strength. It's not a blind following. It's not a mindless cult. It's not following some demigod or charismatic leader. You're encouraged to read the Bible for yourself. I say that all the time. You should read the Bible for yourself so that you understand who God is and who you are. This is the most important thing about Christianity. It's not a legalistic religion where you have to know all of the things in order to follow Jesus. It is an obedience-based religion where you are brought to salvation via the grace of God and grace alone, Ephesians. However, then after you are found in Jesus and saved through faith by grace, Jesus says, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. So we need to follow him. We need to understand what those are. We need to understand how this all works. And it's this very study that allows you to see through the devil's schemes and understand when the wool is being pulled over your eyes. And a lot of these times, the wool is being pulled over your eyes. I'd contend this is also the tool you can use to hold your position strongly with confidence when everyone else is doing the wrong thing. This biblical knowledge, this knowledge of true things, is that thing that allows you to stand and say, no, that's wrong, even when it seems that everyone around you is saying, get on the bandwagon, we have to riot about this, we have to be angry about this. We need to have confidence in what the true things are. And in order to know the true things, we have to study and seek out the true things. This has always been the case. Read the letters of Paul. Many of them, he's encouraging the believers to stay strong in the faith they once held, because the culture around them is always consistently, constantly trying to tempt them into something anti-Christian. And ultimately, you can look even deeper than that, and that's the whole point of the devil, is to get you distracted from the things of God. And this is why I repeatedly say it's Christ or chaos. Now, let's look at some headlines. Okay, we're going to go to New York, figuratively, not literally, but we're going to look at some headlines. And gosh, this one is just wild. Many of you, especially those with younger children, probably are familiar with Miss Rachel. Many may or may not be now familiar with the mayor of New York, newly elected mayor, Zohran Mamdani, who, by his own admission, I don't think I have to say allegedly here, by his own admission, is a socialist communist. I don't know. Democratic socialist. I don't know exactly what he calls himself, but he's in that strain, right? And he has now, if you're just listening, so here's the picture. He has contracted. He's contracted Miss Rachel of the YouTubes and the one who sings to like pre-kindergartners to be his spokesperson for children and childcare. I mean, I guess this is not a joke. This sounds like a joke. This is not a joke. In New York, which is now led by a self-proclaimed democratic socialist / maybe alleged communist, I don't know, is now contracting Miss Rachel for kids events to help them understand the wonders of democratic socialism, I guess. Here's a tweet here from Mom Donnie himself. This morning, Miss Rachel and I visited District 2 Pre-K Center where we sang and read with the wonderful students and educators. We discussed universal childcare and how we're making it happen for NYC. Universal childcare. So remember, if you don't, Mom Donnie is the one who was just elected mayor of New York, sworn into office on the Quran, which, by the way, is anti-Christian, to put it mildly. So it turns out everybody's favorite YouTuber is also going in on all of this socialist, communist stuff. By the way, in other things, I believe Miss Rachel has promoted Free Palestine. She's promoted other left-wing causes. There was some LGBT stuff I think I reported about earlier, or in the middle of last year. And they sung. I did not pull the clip intentionally because I did not want to hear it again. But they sung "If You're Happy and You Know It," and so both of them sung that song for the children. Anyway, here's what they were promoting. Governor Kathy Hochul announced a sweeping investment aimed at delivering universal childcare for children under 5, including a new partnership with New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani to launch free childcare for 2-year-olds and strengthen the existing 3K program. So, 2-year-olds, you're going to be sending your 2-year-olds to the government. I guess I would just ask, what could possibly go wrong here? Okay, so let's keep going here. Let's look at some more headlines. Governor Newsom has been using the Bible to support his claims, and I guess I'll have to give a spoiler alert here. He's using the Bible wrong. So Newsom has been using the Bible, and at recent events, he quoted Jesus, he quoted Old Testament prophets and books to chastise political opponents over food assistance programs. So he... Of course, Newsom is running a government-run welfare program and believes that this is the central expression of Christian obedience. Again, spoiler, I hate to say this out loud if you don't know, but that's not Christian obedience, it's government welfare program. So, in response to social media posts from Trump, Trump noted caring for vulnerable children and orphans is, quote, so important and so big in the Bible, end quote. So Newsom responded and said, you literally fought in court to strip families of food assistance, end quote. So Governor Newsom's point is feeding the hungry is the government's job. Now, let's just say feeding the hungry is absolutely central to the heart of God. You can read through the old, the new, like there's a lot of implications. There's a lot of moments where we're called to help the poor, help the hungry, help the widow, help the orphan. Those are all true things. It's great. What Newsom claims, and I guess what maybe Christians either mistakenly think or surreptitiously understand because the government has told them this. These people think that government programs fulfill this obligation to, quote unquote, love our neighbor, as Jesus says. And I just have to say this out loud. They don't. This is unbiblical. Government programs do not fill the Christian obligation. And just to make it clear, like you as an individual are called to do good. You're not called to let the government do good for you. Let's talk more about that in a moment, but let's hear some other things that Newsom is doing. He's been appealing to the authority of the Pope as evidence of what is a, quote, affront to God, end quote, and taking verses in Isaiah out of context to argue for climate change. This is wild. So he argued that Trump's denial of climate change is anti-Christian, saying it's, quote, an affront to God. Newsom continues, this is not my word, these are the words of the Pope, end quote. So he was at a global climate conference in Brazil, and he cited Isaiah as the source for addressing climate change. He said, quote, in the spirit of Isaiah, we want to be repairers of the breach, end quote. So just to point it out, this comes from Isaiah 58:12. Here is Isaiah 58:12 in its actual context. Those from among you will rebuild the ancient ruins. You will raise up age-old foundations. You'll be called repairer of the breach, the restorer of the streets in which to dwell. So that's Isaiah 58:12. Now, the only problem is, and this is a rather big problem, this passage is about rebuilding Israel and rebuilding the city of Israel, not climate change in any way, shape, or form. How you could stretch it to that, I literally can't tell you. But this is the verse that Newsom is using for climate change. Actually, let's even look deeper in the text in Isaiah. The reason Israel is in ruins this time is that they were disobedient to God and a foreign nation came in and destroyed part of Israel. What did they disobey God on? Things like sacrificing their babies to Moloch, abortion, sexual liberty that, quote, burns with lust under every spreading tree, Isaiah 57:5. There are many sacrifices to other lowercase g gods, loving alcohol too much, oppressing the poor, etc., etc. Many, many things that are not great, according to the Bible, and so they were under judgment from God, so Israel was destroyed, and they were rebuilding the rubble, and that is where they're repairers of the breach, not fixing the ozone layer or something. That's not what's going on. And let's say, in other words, the California governor might actually want to take a closer look at the state he manages for things similar to this Isaiah story, like sprawling homeless encampments, bride parades, abortion without limits, hedonism maxing, even labor exploitation of legal workers. Those sound a lot like the things that caused Israel's destruction in the first place. Maybe be careful with the verses that you choose to employ. But that's just my 2 cents. For those that follow Jesus, generosity and taking care of those less fortunate is a personal biblical mandate. That's absolutely true. If we see someone that is in need, we are supposed to help them. But giving money to government to do it for us is not what we're called to do biblically. In fact, I'd say it's actually a moral danger zone. Here's what I mean. This effectively outsources the obedience we're called to do by giving away responsibility to those that may or may not use the resources for good. So if you just say, here, government, have my money, or others, and I've heard Christians say this, well, I pay my taxes, so I don't have to do any good things or give anything. That's not living into the calling that you have and just saying, I'm done, my duty's done, God, I don't have to do any more. That's not a biblical view. That is a lazy, irresponsible view on what's going on in the world. And so we want to be very careful about that. In other news, the United States carried out a large military strike in Caracas last week, capturing Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, without reported American casualties, which is great. Trump announced that the operation was aimed at enforcing federal indictments, Maduro was charged in 2020 with drug trafficking and narco-terrorism. So there were charges against him, and he was taken back to America for trial because of that. U.S. officials have accused him of leading a state-backed cartel, this is against Maduro, with Colombian rebels to smuggle cocaine into the U.S., armed foreign militias like Tren de Aragua. Trump said the U.S. would govern Venezuela temporarily to ensure a secure transition, citing national security threats and the country, Venezuela's links to hostile regimes like Iran and Cuba. And I think I heard China too, which would be bad. Senator Tom Cotton, a Republican of Arkansas, praised the operation and said, quote, Maduro wasn't just an illegitimate dictator, but the leader of a vast drug trafficking operation, end quote. His remarks reflect ongoing Republican concerns about Venezuela's close ties with Iran and Cuba, both of which have been accused by U.S. officials of using Venezuela as a base for intelligence operations. And here's the important point. This is in our Western Hemisphere, so we need to make sure that our Western Hemisphere is secure because You and I and the rest of Americans live in it. So this is seemingly a good action regardless. Another news story, Trump again signals his desire to buy Greenland.
Right now, we are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not, because if we don't do it, Russia or China will take over Greenland, and we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor.
So he's just funny. But this is probably a good move. We'll see how this plays out. In another statement to CNN on Tuesday, the White House press secretary Leavitt said that, quote, President Trump has made it well known that acquiring Greenland is a national security priority of the United States, vital to deter our adversaries in the Arctic region. And she added, the president and his team are discussing a range of options to pursue important foreign policy goal, and utilizing the military is an option as the commander-in-chief's disposal, end quote. So again, I mean, he reiterated his reason for taking control of Greenland is that it's so strategic. He said, quote, right now, Greenland is covered with Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security, end quote. And just FYI, I looked this up, and I actually looked it up a while ago because I think he's been talking about Greenland for a while. Anyway, I looked it up a while ago, and America has had its eye on Greenland as far back as the 1860s with Andrew Johnson as president right after or right before the Civil War. So, I mean, this has been a thing for a long time, and we're now finally maybe getting around to it. We'll see what happens. Finally, Texas Governor Abbott declared the Muslim Brotherhood and CAIR, C-A-I-R, foreign terrorist organizations. So this is really good. This is a tweet. It's got a lot of tiny writing. I'm not going to go through all the tiny writing, but basically the long and short is that this bans them up for buying or acquiring land in Texas and authorizes the attorney general to sue them and shut them down. So this is a really good thing for America and for Texas more specifically. The Muslim Brotherhood is the social front for a number of militant jihadi groups. CAIR, C-A-I-R, serves as a lobbying group on Capitol Hill, despite U.S. federal investigations, court documents, and internal FBI memos showing financial connections to the terror group Hamas. So it is great that Governor Abbott has said this needs to end, or at least be pushed back considerably. CAIR's former director for the state of Kentucky, Nora Shalash, apparently went viral this year while calling for the death of Jews. Do I have this? No, I don't have this clip. She was calling for the death of Jews, saying, quote, I demand jihad. I want ISIS to kill all of you, end quote. So that's really nice. And just for reference, here's what we need to know. You're like, is this really an issue? Well, one, Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, and that's the only way. And let's take Jesus' commandment, love the Lord your God with your heart and soul, mind, and strength. Let's take the first commandment in the 10 commandments, have no other gods before him. From a Christian standpoint, you can't be Muslim. Sorry, like there's freedom for you to make your choices and do whatever you want to do, but that doesn't mean we have to make a lot of way for people to do whatever they want in other religions in terms of buying things and creating giant mosques. So for reference, about 50 mosques, I think it was 48 last I looked, have been opened in Texas just in the last 2 years. And according to some social media searches like maps and Facebook directories, there may be as many as 330 mosques in Texas. That's a lot. Gateway Pundit did an op-ed back in November, and in Texas, they said 224 mosques were in Dallas-Fort Worth and 109 were in Houston. And there are schools like Brighter Horizons Academy, which sounds very nice, but it is Muslim, 1,700 students, and they've received $2.1 in federal funds to build mosques to a false god. Just have to say this out loud. The Islamic School of Irving, where school children prioritize Quran memorization over core curricula. There's also the Good Tree Academy, 400 segregated pupils, again, segregated because they're only Muslim. We've already on this channel discussed EPIC, 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 the city north of Dallas, the first all-Muslim city in Texas, and it was under fire from the government and the governor of Texas, so they renamed themselves the Meadow, and apparently they're just still building this Muslim-only city. This is really important, and you have to understand, like, there is freedom of religion that we give because we are Christian. where we are not going to, by force, convert everybody. Christianity is, in fact, a religion of love. God is love. Islam is the opposite. Islam is a religion of coercion and force and submission. That's just how they are. I might even have I might have a Charlie Kirk clip. The late, great Charlie Kirk talked about this. And I might play that in a minute here. But I just want to say, too, in terms of opening things, they opened the first Ismaili Center in America, also in Houston. I saw the news report of this several weeks ago. So, and it's celebrated. It's very celebrated. The Houston's mayor said, quote, "We're here to recognize the Ismaili community's greatness, and in doing so, we get to show the greatness of the city of Houston." Mayor John Whitmer told the audience. He said, quote, "This is an historic event. Pause a moment and realize what we're experiencing, what we're witnessing." End quote. And I'd say this is definitely historic. It's not good. It's anti-Christian. It is historic. Islam is not compatible with Western civilization or Christianity. Let's hear. Do we have time? We have time. Let's hear Kirk's statement on this. The late great Charlie Kirk. Here we go.
Islam is not compatible with Western civilization. Period. I'm not talking about individual. We're talking about the macro ideology where many of them gathered together and what that metastasizes into. So I want you to try to filter out any individual interactions, because that is a distraction from what is happening civilizationally. How is it incompatible? Number one, we as Christians believe in freedom of speech. We believe that it is our birthright. Islamists do not believe in freedom of speech, period. You cannot question Muhammad. You cannot make fun of him. You cannot question the state. Number two, they do not believe in freedom of expression or freedom of religion. In Islam, in the verses, you are allowed to lie. You are allowed to deceive in front of God as long as it advances the aims and goals of Islam. Mm-hmm. You are allowed to masquerade a different version of yourself. A foreign concept to those of us as Christians. Because what is the ultimate value claim of Christianity? It is truth. Because our Lord and Savior is truth, and truth became flesh. At the top of all of it, it is truth. In Islam, it is not truth. Truth is not the ultimate Islamic value. It's not. It's power. It's domination, subjugation, conquest. Islam is taking over by force. There's a reason why it is a religion of the sword to create a global caliphate.
All right. I think that was well said. I could go on and on about it, but I think you get the basic idea. Where I want to land here is just to remind us that there can be only one. You cannot serve two masters. It is either Christ or chaos. We saw some chaos in America with some of the things that are going on with ICE. We saw chaos with the communist, socialist, Islamic things that are happening in New York and Texas, and those are not the only places. Those are just some examples. I bring these to your attention so that you will know we are in a battle. It is a spiritual battle, but it has effects into the real world, and you have to know how to live this out. There have to be actions to your beliefs. If you only believe in the quietness and comfort of your own home, and then you walk outside and just say whatever to whatever else is going on around you, you are not living out your faith. I feel like I'm being harsh today, and I don't mean to be. I just think this is a really important time, and you have to have the boldness, the confidence to know that it is either Christ or chaos, and you live in the spirit, you live in the truth, or you descend into the chaos. There is no middle way. You may think, I'll just go get to that later, but you can't. You have to get into it now. And let me also end with this, because I feel like that was too direct and too just downtrodden. It's not. It may seem like the chaos is winning. The chaos is not winning. It just seems like it. It seems like it because Christ is Lord, Jesus is King, yesterday, today, and forever. And he is Lord now. We're just in the middle period where we're in the world, but there will be a day when Jesus comes again, and every knee will bow, and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. Amen. And that'll do it for me today. For Church Public, I'm Matt Odegaard. As always, keep the faith. Once again, thanks for stopping by. If you haven't hit the subscribe or the outro, if you made it this far, congratulations. Really appreciate you. If you're on the Apples, scroll down to the bottom of that page and hit the star review and give it 5 stars if you want. Like it, share it, send it to a friend. Really appreciate you. And we'll see you next time.